You have to take a risk to try and reduce your risk when buying comic books online. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up another order of comic books from a seller I've never purchased from before. And I continue to do this because it's so important to find reputable sellers to buy comic books from. And most of my online comic book buying is from sellers where I don't even have a photo of the book. I'm just trying to trust their condition and their eye when looking at comic books and determining the grade of the book. And for me, that should be good enough. I typically get into, friendly arguments on the internet. I mean, who doesn't? Just regarding places where it makes sense. Like, I don't want to always just call out eBay, but if you're looking at even places like Amazon or Hip Comic or other marketplaces that have photos or more in the style of eBay, if you're not buying slabs, then you're relying on photos, but also the quality of the photos, your ability to assess a grade based on looking at a picture. I mean, it's not always perfect. It's not all an exact science. I certainly have bought many books sight unseen and wish I had a scan. But for the most part, I do feel like it's not as risky as you might think once you are buying from that same seller over and over and you're collecting the data and you're grading the books yourself. And I really feel like the ownership of determining whether or not the books were received in the condition described is ultimately up to the buyer. I know that the seller needs to take ownership and list certain books, as accurately as possible, as best they can with whatever tools at their disposal. But I really don't trust anybody to grade the books the way that I do. And even if I'm not the most accurate grader on the planet, at least I'm grading my own collection and there's some consistency. It's almost like a bad umpire that is always calling a ball a strike. At least it's consistent and you can make the adjustment as a hitter. So in this case, if I am buying from certain sellers and I know I'm always getting books that were listed in near mint as very fine, then I can make the adjustment and look at prices and scale the price back or look up the values of the book in very fine and so on. A lot of times with eBay, it's random. I feel like it's almost like a flea market situation where I think a lot of people are just throwing books up there. They're overgrading or just guessing on grades. And, I'm sure there are sellers that regularly sell that where the condition can be trusted just like you would anywhere else online. But I don't always feel like the photo itself is the end all be all for condition. I really think it takes buying from the same seller many, many times, a significant number of books. You want to grow that sample size to the point where you can actually just look at a book, sight unseen, look who's selling it, and say, yep, that book is going to come to me and be a near mint minus at worst. That's what I like to do. I like to buy from different sellers. I like to introduce risk early on. And sometimes I go a little overboard. I would say that you probably should start out and buy a smaller either number of books or spend less until you get comfortable with a particular seller. But in this case, there was a book that I was having a difficult time really passing it up. And it was listed in near mint. I'm going to open up this order. I'm very excited to acquire a book of this age. And I'm finding that more and more of my orders are more typically like this now, where they are older back issues where I'm trying to get as high a grade as possible. And I'm trying to essentially create a balance between superhero comics and maybe some other comics that are just around the same particular era. But what I'm starting to do in the background is track other books that maybe I've never collected, I've never even heard about, from Marvel and DC in particular. around the same era. So maybe that's a little bit of a teaser for a future unboxing. So let me unbox this order and take a look at some of the more recognizable titles and issues here and see from this brand new source if the grades worked out. All right, here is that order that I placed with Atomic Avenue from a new seller I hadn't purchased from. Mark M is the actual seller name. The books were sent. I had to pay for shipping, and it was sent media mail. It is what it is. It looks like the books were, or the package was not ransacked by the post office, so all is well. They did arrive. It is something that I struggle with when I'm charged a particular amount for a shipping service, and they opt for media mail to just make a few extra dollars. But it is up to the seller. Media mail happens sometimes, not a huge deal. I'm just not a fan. I never use it. But let me go ahead and open this up and let's get to the comics. All right, probably one of the strangest ways to wrap comics I've ever seen. It was just almost like layers and layers of tape and plastic. And then I was worried like that I cut through a bag or something, but it looks like the seller just laid a book on top without a bag and board. So I'll go ahead and start with that one. This is Iron Man number 80. And this is a fantastic Jack Kirby cover. It's just unfortunate. It just came sort of loose here in the package. Now, again, all these books were listed as near mint, so I took the chance and ordered them and paid, around near mint prices, fair market value for the raw books. And this certainly does appear to be, at worst, a high grade copy. So here it is out of the bag because it didn't really come in one. I would just say that there's some lining here, or just some markings right in there. It's very subtle. You can kind of see it there. Would probably benefit from a press to get that out, but the spine looks really nice. Right here, unfortunately, right by the Kirby signature, there is a color-breaking spine tick right there. It sort of blends in with the art a little. Corner is definitely soft. You're looking in that, especially with some of the clippings right there off of the edge. It looks like something around a 9.2 or a 9.0 type corner. Then you got a color break there, color break by Iron Man's arm. Another just a hairline color break right in there. So we're dealing with a few color breaking spine ticks, another soft corner up there, but all in all, looks to be okay. Not near mint, of course. Staples are out of position, which is going to be tough with the press up there as well on that side. Probably would just require a decent wipe down, some steam a little bit to get some of the lines out on the cover. Maybe this book maxes out at a 9.0, 9.2. There's also a little bit of creasing up there, right in there. So what I will say is the colors on this book, it really pops, so that it really does not look faded at all. It looks like it's held up pretty well. The front cover does not look dirty. I don't even know if I would wipe it down, to be honest. It looks really great in the trade. So it's really just the back that's got some ink stains and so forth. So if I were to give this a grade as is, I would probably look at an 8.5 or a 9.0. Probably 8.5 the more that I look at it, which again is not too bad for 25-cent cover. Iron Man number 80, Jack Kirby art. Inside, probably off-white to white, if I were to guess. So a little disappointing, especially without it being protected. It probably didn't get damaged in transit, but you never know. All right, looks like the rest are bagged and boarded. So next one up. Fantastic Four 207. I could tell right away, not a near mint copy. It's all chewed up there at the top. So again, here's the risk, right? It's the risk of learning about the sellers. It really looks good otherwise. Unfortunately, just the top of the book is just like somebody took a bite out of it or something. Who knows? But really strong copy. Again, great colors. Even through the bag, I can kind of tell. But man, it's unfortunate, but still kind of going through. And I've contemplated like picking kind of an arbitrary run of Fantastic Four to see if I can complete it. I feel like I'm kind of doing it anyway without really thinking about it. But somewhere like in the 150 to 250 range. And this was an issue I didn't have, so still trying to fill out my run of Fantastic Four with this 207. Really not a bad copy, but with that crunch or whatever that is at the top there, probably looking at again somewhere around the 8.5 to 9.2 range. Unfortunately, if everything else is perfect. And the next one is another Fantastic Four book that I didn't own, that I am happy to add now, and that is Fantastic Four 181. I am looking at the top here, and I believe that is part of the art. I think it's part of the building that's just lined up here, and it is on the other side as well. That kind of scared me at first. It's just an outline of front of the Baxter building. Great Kirby cover once again, so really lucked out with getting these great Jack Kirby covers on any book at all. It is awesome. So this is really cool. This one looks really nice. So much so that I'm actually going to take this out of the bag and board here and just give it a quick look. Just curious to see how the back looks as well. I thought I saw a crease there up and down the middle, but I think it's okay. Very, very bright colors. A little bit of a fold here. I can get that in the light there. So a little bit of a fold or crease there that would need a little bit of a press, but very, very strong copy. Probably borderline corner softness there, somewhere potentially bringing it down into the 9.4, 9.6 range, but bottom corner really sharp. Same with the opposite corner here. Top right also looks good. So this is a great looking copy. Super, super bright. This will probably, maybe it's off white to white in terms of the page color. Possibly white right in there. Agatha Harkness appearance. So I think what I've noticed, first of all, with the first few books is that there's very little fading. I mean, this looks like it just came off the printer. So this is just a great cover artistically, but also just the blacks. It's a deep black, the reds, the whites, all the colors, the Fantastic Four costumes, all of it. It's I'm just actually quite surprised, happily surprised. Even the Thing, who could potentially be a candidate for being faded out there. That's a super strong orange and yellow and blue. Just very impressed with the coloring on it. So the back as well, just almost like shockingly white and bright. So really happy with that one. Probably in the 9.4 or 9.6 or 9.4 with a press potentially to get that little fold out on the back. But that's a really, really nice copy, really strong candidate. And it would be probably just come down to whether or not a grader would punish the book for that corner. But, I think conservatively tops out on a 9.6. So that was a pretty nice find there. All right, next up is Avengers 212. I thought this would be a really nice pickup. This is from 1981. Again, not trying to purposefully complete an Avengers run, but sort of in just arbitrarily picking, around the 150 to 250 issue range. I'm just taking this one out too because this looks pretty good. And again, the colors being just really, really nice here. 50-cent cover. Back looks great. I wouldn't even mess with any sort of wet cleaning on this. This looks really strong as is. A couple of minor spine ticks, but really hard to see unless you're really zoomed in. It's just like hairline right in here. There's just a couple. Maybe even those would come out in the press. Yeah, this one looks amazing. It has a little bit of a stacking crease, just slightly, but I would probably just quick press this one and it would be all right. Right here at the top, there's just a little bit of a page fold. I'm almost getting it out right here just by moving it back and forth with my finger and thumb here. But a little bit of just a minor page issue right in here. It's hard to even see it, but gorgeous. Again, color-wise, just super vibrant. Love it. So that was Avengers 212. So with the stacking crease and maybe a very slight spine tick, I hesitate to just throw it up there as a 9.6, maybe a 9.4 with a press, but this probably could max out at a 9.8 if this comes out after a quick press nice and crispy. So this has the really, really nice potential here. So far, so good. All right, we got a few more left here. This is Amazing Spider-Man 225. A really fun cover here. A lot of collectability because it's an all yellow background cover. Once again, looks to be really. I keep looking at these through the bag. I'm like, this looks too good to be true. Like if these are all, maybe a quick press away from a 9.8 or 9.6. So I just wanted to check this one out as well. This one, not so much as I take it out of the bag. It's why you take it out of the bag when you're grading. Right there in here, I mean, it's very, very creased. Now, the good news is I don't see a lot of color breaks here in terms of the spine and even the yellow everywhere. A little bit of an issue maybe right there by the staple, but not bad. Again, strong colors. This one has a little bit of a fade to it, so it's possible that this had a bit of exposure. There's also a little bit of like an ink running kind of there. So unfortunately, I noticed sort of like an ink stain or streak that's just going all the way up and down the book. So that's unfortunate. I never quite know how to grade those because you could argue those are manufacturing, like as it's rolling off the press, and it's pretty straight, but certainly not a presentable like copy if you were thinking like, oh, this is high grade, but it's got that ink stain. So I typically will downgrade those sorts of things from a presentation perspective, even if maybe CGC would look the other way on it. I just conservatively just mark it down. So I'm thinking already kind of like probably in the 9.2 with all the creasing and everything. Now you're probably 8.5 to 8. I think if you were to press it out and get everything out, this would actually be a pretty fun one to work on just because there's so much creasing but very little color breaks. So in that regard, this would definitely be a pressing candidate, but I still would probably max it out with that ink stain. No more than 9.4, but probably 9.2 just to be on the safe side. But again, really nice, strong copy. The 10-speed racer ad on all the Marvel comics around this age, super annoying that Marvel decided to do that because so many great comics have that ridiculous ad, but kind of, I guess, adds to the nostalgia of it. But there it is. That's ASM 225. Strong, high-grade copy, I would say. Another Avengers book, Avengers 182, covered by Al Milgrom and Bob Layton on this one. And a very, very slight miswrap, but another strong copy. Gonna do it again, gonna take a look. Again, the color is just incredible. So happy with that. Looking down here, a little bit of a paper issue there. Moving it around, trying to fix it on my own. I think I got it. There we go. I think that's better now. Just a slight little tear or splitting down there at the corner. So that's unfortunate, but very, very minor. Spine looks really strong. No real spine ticks that I can see. So that's, gosh, this book looks great. Unfortunately, if it didn't have that little bit of a corner issue, it would almost be a 9.8 on its own. I don't even see a reason to press it. Looks really, really strong. There's some kind of hidden spine ticks here that often happens in a book like this, especially with this particular ad. Right in here, I think you can see it in the light, but yeah, there's a couple. Actually, there's 3, 1, 2, 3. So would overall benefit from a press, but I'm almost thinking of just grading it as is as a 9.6. Again, conservatively, maybe as I'm actually cataloging it, I'm going to put it down as a 9.4 with a press potential for a grade bump up to 9.6. But boy, this is that's borderline 9.8, I think. So really, really happy so far with these. Now, this last book was, again, kind of what I would call like the centerpiece of the order. I typically try and create orders around a specific book. And I was looking at this one for quite a while that this seller had available. And it was, again, listed in near mint condition. Sometimes it's too good to be true. I hope that this is not one of those cases and that it is truly accurately graded as near mint. But it's time to finally take a look at it. And the book that I centered the order around is Avengers 88. Now, already just giving it a quick glance, it is not near mint. So, yeah, if it is too good to be true, it usually is. And since I took the other books out and looked at the condition, I will go ahead and do this one. But I could tell right through the bag, this one has no shot at a 9.4. And you'll see right away what I'm talking about. Just lots of spine ticks, color breaks, more typical of your, mid to high grade type copy. Now, I don't believe that it's a 6.0 or anything. And again, the primary colors on these books are just popping. I think that what I'm learning from this particular seller is, for the most part, these are probably, or they were, since they're now mine, and probably his other books, are very, very well stored and out of the way of sunlight or anything else that's going to detract or pull and lift the color off the books. And I love that part of trying to collect high-grade books, is also try and get them with that presentation factor, that striking color. And all of these books, maybe not the ASM 225, but all of these books really have that quality. And this one I would include in that as well. So it is unfortunate. And like with most books that you're buying, I'm going to kind of say the same thing. It would benefit from a press. I think most of the books do nowadays when you're buying them from collections. There's lots of little, just tiny creases that could be worked out here. Like right in here, there's quite a few. But no significant color breaks or scratches. The trade looks pretty good. The other thing I would say is this one is probably the one book out of the stack that I would consider to be dirty. It does have a little bit of dirt up and down the back, so I probably 1 or 2 passes of distilled water or some other cleaning element would probably brighten up the back of the book. I would probably consider maybe even doing it once over the front. But there's not much I can do with the color breaking ticks on the side. It just kind of is what it is. So this one, if I were to kind of grade it out, like a 7.0 is kind of jumping out at me in terms of condition. I think if I could press out the creases and flatten it up and just kind of count up the creases there, it's possible it gets up to an 8. I don't think it's an 8.5. It's probably max is 7.5 or 8. So again, high grade copy. I took a chance. I gambled. I probably lost in terms of what I paid for it. And this could have been one of those things where I requested a scan of the book or tried to take a look at photos online, I would see those spine ticks and almost right away understand that, I would not be purchasing a near mint copy of Avengers 88. Like I said, sometimes that stuff is too good to be true, but I think from an overall order perspective, really, really nice grades on these books. So very, very pleased overall with the condition. But now what I want to see is do these books add up in terms of the value that I wanted to add to my collection. So I want to compare what I paid for these books against the raw fair market value and also the values if I were to get these books graded. All right, here is that order that I placed from Mark M. from Atomic Avenue. It was an order I placed on October 18th, 2022, and I paid $120.80. The bulk of that was the $43 that I paid for Avengers 88. But the other thing with this particular seller, one of the reasons I hadn't purchased from him in the past was he does charge for shipping. I paid $13.80 for shipping, and he spent $8 and change to send it media mail, so made another $5 off of me just from the shipping. And again, that's sometimes what sellers do. They want to try and add a little additional margin to the order, and it happens. I don't like it. I wouldn't do that to a buyer if I were selling books, but it is what it is. And I felt like, you know what, I'm going to pay the $13.80 because I thought that I was getting good value from these books. If I were to get them all near mint, $120.80 is what I paid. If I compare the total cost of the books in column Z to make sure my math is right, I've got the summary of each book adding up to $120.80. So I take the $13.80 that it costs to ship the book, to ship the order of books, and I distribute that across each book so that I know what was my true total cost. Now, if I'm comparing the cover price fair market value, and that's just the most common condition value, not specifically for the grade that I purchased the books in or the actual grade, it's just the most common fair market value for the raw book. And if I compare that to what I spent to acquire the book in column AA, we'll see that if I'm just looking at the books from a raw value perspective, it is a $45.80 loss. Now, typically with orders like this, you see the range of years here from 1971 up to 1982. When you're buying these books and you're comparing the just random raw fair market value against the total cost, it's typically a loss. It's typically just you're losing money because you're kind of buying them sight unseen, and you're maybe paying a little bit more in hopes to get them high grade, but then, the grades are what they are. But for the most part, what I've noticed is if, like with Mile High Comics and other places where you're buying older back issues, there's such a premium on acquiring the back issues in high grade. Certainly you could make the argument, some of these books you can find in dollar bins, but they would be low to mid grade at best. So there's always this extra premium that I don't mind paying, but it always looks a little weird because when all the books are from like this age, then it's typically a loss. Really where the value is that potential if the books were graded at 9.4, 9.6, or 9.8. So let's do that. Let's take a look and see here, because all of these were basically a loss. $13 loss on FF 181, although I felt like that was a 9.4 or 9.6, possibly a 9.8 candidate. Another big loss on Avengers 88, which was a big disappointment because that was the gamble, was to pay almost $45 after the shipping costs to acquire it, but then it only has a fair market value raw of $25. So could I have acquired that book in like a 9.0 range raw for $25? Possibly, maybe at an eBay auction, who knows? But I wanted to splurge and take a chance to see if I could get it, 9.0 to 9.4 type range. But anyway, kind of a loss from a raw book perspective. But if I were to get these books graded and they are a 9.4 near mint, because that's what they were listed as near mint, and I set all of these books to 9.4, then if I look at column V for the CGC value, and some pretty good value here. So if I compare now in column AB, if I were just to send all of these books, all 7 of these books off to CGC and kind of sight unseen, I thought they were 9.4s, still $145.23 value add to my collection, which is pretty good. Now, not all of them would be worth grading. FF207 looks like I would lose $20 if that came back as a 9.4. And same with Avengers 182, a loss of $10.66 if I were to get that book graded and it hit a 9.4. Avengers 212, I did double check this. It's not my data entry. There is no reported sales of this book in a 9.4. So does it have no value at all? Will probably have some value, but again, with no recorded sales from the online price guides, kind of just a weird no value book from 1981. It's hard to believe. I feel like if that were in a 9.4, probably at least move it for somewhere between $20 and $40, but may not be worth investing in getting that book graded. Now, there's some value here in the 9.4, and that's why I try and acquire these in high grade, in near mint, hopefully in that would translate from near mint to 9.4. But what I love to do is, what is the ceiling? What is the max? What is the potential here? Maybe I could press and clean some of these and bump them all the way to 9.8. I don't believe that all of these books are 9.8, but if they were, well, hold on a second. So it says $2,526.91, but the Iron Man 80 at $1,435 is a little ridiculous. This book I also looked up, and there was one reported sale from years ago that apparently sold for that much, but not very realistic here in this day and age for that specific book to have that much value. And if we look at 9.6, maybe a little more common, 181 is it's probably more realistic, I would say, even for a 9.8 of that book. Maybe 200, but I feel like I'm pushing it. And I think, let me see, the 9.4 of that one was $95. I could see maybe the 9.8 around 180 and a 9.6 maybe at 125, 140 somewhere around there. That's so I feel like even though I've moved this grade down to 9.6, I think the CGC values now are probably a little more accurate. So a $1,272.91 ceiling. Again, the big gamble for me was Avengers 88. Did I believe I was buying a 9.8 raw copy for $45? Absolutely not. But again, the hope is get it in the 9.2, 9.4 ballpark and then identify any pressable defects to potentially move it into being a 9.8 candidate. Again, that's the strategy, that's the idea. It doesn't always work out, but it's fun to try. So overall, with this particular order, I'm very, very pleased in general. The Avengers 88 didn't hit, but for the most part, these were really high grade, high quality comics. The colors were great, very, very vibrant. They felt like they were well taken care of. There are some sellers where I get books and it feels like they're just stacked up in an attic somewhere. I really feel like without knowing anything about the seller, from the looks of these books, I feel like, okay, probably stored in proper back issue type bins, short boxes, long boxes, and so forth, out of the sun and properly cared for. And I don't know why the Iron Man 80 didn't come with a bag and board. So maybe not. They weren't all like specifically treated well, but maybe I tore through it when I was trying to get through the ridiculous bubble wrap and tape. And I just sort of, maybe I sliced the back of the bag. I don't know. But great comics, couple of great Kirby covers in there. Love that kind of, again, early, mid 70s, all the way through late 70s, early 80s comics. That whole run from Marvel, I pretty much just can pick any title and fall in love with it all over again. And really, that's what I'm doing. I'm targeting those mainstream books from those years, those release years specifically, certain creators around that time frame. And then what I'm going to start doing is also looking for your non-mainstream titles and try and look at late 60s, early 70s and start to focus more on those. Because I've said this for a while, I think that the stock, the available supply of those kind of books is going to continue to drop. And eventually, as time goes on, it's not that those books will also be keys. I'm looking at, FF 181. Like I know that this is not a key book. It's not a grail of any kind, but if I'm looking 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this book is from 1977. It's just going to be that much older, and to have it preserved and bagged and boarded properly by me, again, put out of the sun or even sent into CGC, pressed and preserved in a way, sort of this like little historical timepiece of sorts. I'm fascinated by the potential of that. I think what's going to be interesting to me too is as the supply of the high grade early Bronze Age books decreases, will there still be enough demand from collectors? Will there be enough collectors like you and me out there that are interested in these books? Or, I kind of hate to say it, but will people age out of the hobby to the point where they've strictly just become a seller and trying to move on or offload their collection, maybe pass it to a next generation sort of thing? I do feel like that's going to happen to me at some point. I'm certainly not in my prime or prime comic book collecting, but I've got a long way to go with this hobby. But I do feel like there's a certain kind of collector that like prefers golden age books, and I kind of feel like sooner than later, the interest in Silver Age and Bronze Age, it may lose its appeal to your average collector 10 years from now. What does that average collector look like? So these are the kind of things I think about, and I feel like there's probably a window where maybe that window's closing within the next decade, where these older books kind of maybe move into golden age territory, or just the general collector that loves Silver Age and Bronze Age comics, it's possible that they could start aging out of it. So it'll be interesting to kind of see, but I'm going to put this seller's name aside. I'm going to grade these books officially, get them cataloged, and look and see where this seller ranks. But I would most likely buy from this seller. Again, I probably would request scans if possible, if they exist on some of maybe the higher end purchases. Not that $40 is a crazy amount of money, but if you're buying a comic and it's listed near mint and it's the $40-$50 range, and it's an older book, it's probably a wise decision to see if they're able to take a photograph of the book. But when I saw it and I saw the value and I saw the potential, if the book were high grade, I just wanted to acquire it. I just wanted to pick it up before it was gone. And sometimes, it's kind of an impulse buy situation. And I think that by taking the risk in buying comics from this seller today, I have reduced the amount of risk if I were to buy any comic books from them in the future. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.